Overwatch Stadium is one of the modes that I never actually ended up playing when it first came out for in Overwatch 2 when it was still called Overwatch 2. And since I re-downloaded the game, reinstalled it, did all those things, playing the regular game, I decided, you know what, I've never actually played Stadium yet. Let's try Stadium well after it's been launched. And after a couple things have been not changed but like balanced or things have been done with Stadium. And I do have to say my first impressions of Stadium is that it is actually a really interesting game mode and I really enjoy it, with the caveat of it seems to be really snowbally and you get just one tapped from 100 to 0 HP really easily. Probably because of like the powers and stuff like that. But the overall is actually pretty good, honestly. Before we get deeper into me talking about Stadium, I'd like to remind everyone, please subscribe to the channel. I do these style of videos on Fridays, so if you'd like to come over on Friday, we do with these videos then. Now, obviously, the biggest difference between regular Overwatch and Overwatch Stadium is the fact that you have the armory and the inventory system, basically, which turns it into a MOBA game, basically, with item builds. Kind of, because, like, they are technically items, but there's also powers. So that is the biggest difference. And I think the really interesting thing is a lot of these powers are things they demonstrated from the PvE mode before they canceled it. Like, May's snowball thing was something they did with the demonstration of the PvE mode. And so I guess I'm glad that some of these things that they've been working on for the past 3 years, they're actually being used in a thing. They're just being used not in a PvE game mode, it's a PvP game mode. And overall, I think the powers are really cool. Now, to be fair, I've only played 2 characters so far. I played Moira and Juno. And I'm still mostly using whatever the game recommends me. I'm looking into the item shop a little bit more to know what the items actually do and how they synergize together. But I'm still just mostly doing the whatever the game recommends me. And I'm not going in competitive or anything like that, so it kind of makes sense. Doing recommended is generally fine. I mean, technically, I've been playing League for however many years, and I still basically use recommended. Though it's not necessarily the game recommended. I use recommended via websites, I guess, for League of Legends specifically. But for the Overwatch Stadium, I am using what the game is recommending to me. And for instance, with the Moira that I've been playing, basically the whole build I've been using is the one that's all around based on the orbs. It's very orb based, and I think that's an interesting concept with Overwatch that hasn't really been touched yet, is like builds in Overwatch can be a thing now, while in regular Overwatch, like technically there are the perks now, so there is kind of character builds, but not nearly as in depth as Stadium for the character builds. And I think that's a very interesting concept for Overwatch. It really ticks my MOBA brain a lot because some of the games I've played a lot over the past couple years is League of Legends and Deadlock, which are both very MOBA coded. So it's just super interesting to see that builds are a thing I can think about in Overwatch, at least in this specific game mode. And overall, I really enjoy the build concepts and I really enjoy how they do it. I also really like how when you buy items, you can just full resell them for the exact same cost, basically. And it's really nice. It lets you experiment with different items and different ways to play, even in the same match. There are some weird things that I find personally. One, the MVP is just purely based on how much score you got for the money system. And that is a little weird, but I guess how else are you gonna do the MVP after every single round? Which makes sense. And I do have to say, even though I understand why there's so much time in between rounds and so people can buy items and like do those sorts of things, look at the items, it does feel like every round takes just a slightly too long for it to start. I think the armory time is fine. I think once the armory time ends, you really shouldn't need like 8 seconds to get ready. Like, I think after the armory time ends, you do 3-second countdown until the match actually starts. Because it feels like there is a lot of waiting at the entrance because of the armory time and then the waiting for the round to start time. I do feel like the starting round time doesn't need to be that high. It could be like 3 seconds. It feels a lot longer than maybe it actually is, because since I'm just hitting recommended and I'm not really reading the items as in depth right now as I probably should be because I'm very new to it. So I'm doing a lot of waiting personally, but maybe through testing they're like, this is how much time is needed. I do feel like the armory time completely fine, but they really need to think about lowering the match time before the in-between, before the armory and the actual round start. And overall, those are really the only like kind of negative things I would have to say about it. Everything else is good things, which I think is a good reflection of what I think of the Overwatch Stadium right now, and kind of Overwatch in general. Like I said in the previous video before, and I was talking about like the regular game mode and me coming back. With Stadium, it's just even more fresh than it was before, because the 5v5 in Overwatch, while fresh to me because of the perk system and all the new heroes and the new maps, there is still the hint of what I used to play and the similarities of all the things that I used to play. So there is still some of that similarity coming back to me. But with Stadium, other than the game mode, technically, it's all fresh. And even then, even with that, like the push or the control or the payload, it is a shortened version of that. So it is still slightly new. And I really enjoy the new modes in Stadium in general. I kind of wish they were in regular Overwatch, but I guess it's probably too short for a regular Overwatch match because it's since it's best of 5, first to 3. In Stadium, the rounds are so much shorter, even though the game is overall longer, potentially at least. Like if it's a 3-0, it's pretty fast. But if you get to round 5, it takes a long time. And all of the game modes have been shortened down to actually work in this. The one thing that I am not entirely sure if it's a skill issue or if it is just the way the game is designed, there doesn't seem to be as many ults in the first couple rounds. And I feel like I'm not sure if that's me or the players around me having a skill issue of just not being able to build ult properly, or if that is just supposed to happen in the match where it's like, yeah, you're not really going to be getting an ult every round in the beginning because the rounds are so fast. Or maybe it's because, for me at least, it's been a blowout every round, basically. It's very few times that it's been a contested thing. It's someone wins the first early fight and the whole time the other team is trying their best to win the fight to gain control of whatever objective we're fighting over, but they don't really do it. Very few times has it happened. It happens a couple times, don't get me wrong, but it does seem like it's a very snowbally game, even more so than regular Overwatch, because of the powers and how beefy you can get with the credits. And if you are a winning team, and there are comeback mechanics just like in other MOBAs, but like, man, is it hard if you're behind. I do really like the comeback mechanics, like the bounty system for when someone is getting really hot and you kill them, you get extra credits, or whatever the money is called in this game mode. I'm going to call it credits. I also really like the fact that the powers are round based and not money based. If you could just buy more powers, that would be horribly broken, and I don't think it would matter what kind of comeback mechanics you have. I think that would be broken. I'm glad they made it round based for the powers to alter your abilities, and I'm not sure if this is just me being on the lower skill tier, but it does seem that, at least for the games that I've played, and I'm still under 10 games overall in terms of Stadium, so this is a very early impression. But even now, I'm seeing people use the same builds for heroes, and that might just be the fact that everyone's hitting recommended, or people have just already figured out the best builds. I'm also not entirely sure how often Blizzard is really planning to balance Stadium or add things to Stadium, because like they do have this big push for the new Overwatch season, but I don't remember seeing Stadium stuff. And that could be because I'm just selectively remembering stuff, but I feel like Stadium is definitely the second mode to the regular mode, which makes sense because it is really the second mode. I also didn't wait that long for a match. Like, I never waited more than a couple minutes. So like, and I was also queuing support only, so I was putting myself in a thing where it would take slightly longer because I was only queuing one role. So there is definitely a player base for Stadium, and I'm curious to see how long it goes. I really want them to just keep adding the new heroes. Obviously, it takes a lot longer because you have to do all the powers, and even the items seem to be very specific to the characters as well. Like, it doesn't, like, there are some generic items, but it do feel like the rarer items, the purples, and even the blues are a little more specific to the characters. So while that does make sense because every character's kit is unique, and while there is like ability power, weapon power, attack speed, all those normal stats you can get in the MOBAs, most of it was very specific to that character. At least that's the way Moira was working. And same with Juno. The one time I played Juno instead of Moira, it seems like the items were also catered towards her abilities as well. At least a little bit. They could have some generic effects, but like the cooldown reduction and stuff like that, but it does seem like they are slightly teetered towards each hero from what I can tell. And that's interesting But that must also mean it takes a lot longer for them to make a hero for Stadium, because they have to go through all the things, as well as obviously the longest time that it takes is making the new powers, because I think there's 9 cards for the powers. At least for Moira there's 9. There could be more or less. I am assuming there are all the same. That would be kind of weird if it wasn't the same. So making 9 more things for each hero would be kind of insane. Obviously that's a lot of work, and I'm curious how big if they have a separate Stadium team for content, which makes sense if there was a separate Stadium team for compared to the regular game, because it really does feel like it's a completely different game. And honestly, if like they had an Overwatch spin-off game and it was the Stadium mode, it wouldn't even surprise me. But instead it's all in Overwatch 2 or Overwatch. So it's just a really crazy thing that they have so many things going. And continuing on with the fact that the things I really like about it, the power fantasy of the characters is just so much bigger than the regular game, because you just go ham on one of the abilities you really like. I really like the orbs for Moira, and you know, the spray and stuff like that as well. It's really fun. But the strength of the orbs in Stadium is so funny to me, to the point of where sometimes I feel like people using ult is actually not as good as just using their regular ability, because they can't use their regular ability unless they're building for their ult, which I do feel like maybe would work in a couple of the heroes, but you only get like 1 or 2 ults at best, at least from my experience, during a round. So it has to be a really big impact ult. But I feel like overall, doing builds for the regular abilities seems to be the way to go. Basically, every hero I've seen has done something like that. Their abilities are crazier than their ults. I'm not saying the ults are bad, of course, but it does feel like ults aren't as impactful as regular abilities for most characters. There are certain characters that their ults are still just as good. The new character that has the big sword always kills me every time, whether it's in the Stadium or the regular game. I don't know why. I just constantly die to this hero. I cannot stop it. I don't know why. But overall, I really enjoy this new Stadium mode. Once again, this is a very, very first impressions. I've played less than 10 games, but I really enjoyed those games so far, even though I'm losing most of the time, which I think is a big deal for me, because even when I'm losing, I'm having fun and I'm doing my build. It reminds me of League of Legends and Deadlock a lot, because even though we could be losing the game, I'm still being satisfied with how my build's going and how like it's working out. Sure, we're not winning every fight, we're losing the rounds, we're losing the game overall, but it's also still satisfying enough for me to play and want to queue up again, similar to the Deadlock or League of Legends for me. And it's hitting that same MOBA vibe, which I guess I can never escape, because no matter what I do, I always go back to MOBAs, which maybe it's a personal problem, which it definitely is. And I really am excited to play more Stadium. I don't know if I'm going to play other characters right now. I think I'm going to be stuck on Moira for at least a little bit, become a one-trick Moira main in Overwatch Stadium, because I really like the orb build and I want to like look into the items, because I'm sure the game recommending me stuff is doing things technically wrong, but we'll see. The biggest thing is that I can improve in Overwatch Stadium without aim skill and game skill. I can improve with game knowledge, which is interesting, because obviously game knowledge is a big deal in Overwatch, but it's never been build knowledge or synergy knowledge or item synergy knowledge. It's like a completely different skill set that you can do, and you can kind of just like let the MOBA things happen where you can launch your abilities and you kind of just hope for the best. Like in the reason I enjoy Moira is because I can throw my orbs, spray all my healing, hold right click, and start again. Do that same thing, repeat, because then my orb is off of cooldown. And while that is, you know, technically you could do that in regular Overwatch as well, it has a different vibe to it, I feel like, in this, because of the MOBA aspect and the item builds and the powers. And I really like that. I really hope that they continue doing this mode. I know they are, but I hope they continue improving on the mode along with everything else, because there's so many things now they're doing with Overwatch, and now that they're ramping the battle pass and all that type of stuff, and they're going crazy with the new heroes and everything, I really do hope they continue with Stadium as well. I'm sure they will, but I'm just worried that it's going to become one of those things where it slowly becomes what 3v3 happened in League of Legends or Dominion happened. I'm really hoping that this becomes the ARAM of League of Legends, where it truly is the other mode. For a lot of people, there are people who only play ARAM in League of Legends, and I'm really hoping for Overwatch. It's probably already happened for some players, but I really hope that there are people that are like, I am only an Overwatch Stadium player, that's it. And I think that's a good thing for the game, especially because it's a very different vibe for the game, and it brings in different players, and sometimes those players also play regular games as well, so it'll be really interesting to see. Thank you everyone for watching today's video. I really appreciate it. Once again, if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button, notification bell, all that good YouTube stuff. I do these videos on Fridays. I also do news style videos on Mondays. If you'd like to support me, please go over to patreon.com/thetechnojelly. You join all of these nice people in the credits, as well as a once a month live stream. That live stream is going to be happening in slightly March, but also you can vote on what we're going to be doing right now. The poll is up on Patreon, so go over there, become a member, vote for the poll, let your voice be heard. If you'd like to have a more physical product and support me, I am partnered and affiliated with Poggers.shop. They do hydration drinks, energy drinks, and sleep aid drinks. I've had them. They taste pretty good, and they are good stuff. You can also get shakers and all that good stuff. You can go to Poggers.shop in the description, and you can use my code TechnoJelly for 10% off of their shop. And if you'd like to follow me on other platforms, I have a Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, and Threads. Thank you everyone for watching today's video, and I'll see you in another one. Goodbye, everyone.